Hey, y'all out there, basically living wasted lives out of control and are looking at this because of lack of a better idea. I thought I'd share some of my Photoshop work and some of my artwork and stuff that I put on the internet, on Facebook, and different places throughout this past year. I call it the Armadillo's Greatest Hits, and I hope you enjoy it. This is one of my first creations a long time ago. It's one of my favorite, and when I want someone to leave my home, I often point to that and give them a warning. And I almost always end up having to throw them out because, well, people just can't help themselves. Here's one I did kind of early, the theme of which I think is pretty obvious: Obama's idea that wealth ought to be redistributed. And I was just imagining how he might go about it, and I thought this might be one of the most effective means he could possibly use. So I made this up. Now the stuff that follows I'm not going to leave up as long as I have this one. So if you want to read them, you can just pause them there, and that should do it. There's no way I can just leave them up as long enough for some of y'all to read them as slow as some of y'all read. If I did that, we'd have a Daryl F. Zanuck, epic movie, and YouTube wouldn't like that very much. Now I put this here one up just so you all know just exactly the kind of perils and the kind of fears that I had to live through daily. I'm sure most dog lovers will really appreciate this. Now there's the only bumper sticker on the back of my car. Made it myself. As you all know, Larry King ended his reign of pablum this year, and I put this up in honor of him and the guest that he obviously was most obsessed about as a young teenage boy. And if you remember Angie Dickinson, it's hard to blame him. This is one of my favorite Photoshops here. Let's see, I remember the caption on this was, "Well, he hears real good with them big ears, but he don't listen worth a damn." Now, I think this one's pretty clear, but some of you slow readers just might have to slow it down, stop it even, so you can actually get it all. Yeah, I'm speechless too. Here's one I did on Glenn Beck because he came in here into Texas as like a hired gun to trash and do everything he could to destroy Deborah Medina during the gubernatorial primaries here in Texas. And then a week later he came back in and then barefaced lied about it and falsified stuff on the radio. So this is sort of my response to all that. I don't trust the guy. This is one I did trying to underline the kind of epidemic of fascism that seems to be the fashion and has broken out in our government there on Mordor on the Potomac. Now, this one right here was inspired by a quote from the Contessa Pelosi. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, as is this one. Now, y'all remember the mosque controversy earlier this year and how Mayor Bloomberg spoke up for the terrorists the Muslims being able to build a mosque there near the World Trade Centers. Yeah, and you also remember the kind of boondoggle with the snow recently there in New York City. I figured I'd combine these two gems just in honor of Mayor Bloomberg. And of course, who could forget how President Obama, that great communicator, complained that the reason people didn't like health care was he just hadn't been able to explain it in 59 or 60 or 70 or 100 speeches. Well, I put this up. Y'all remember the warden from Cool Hand Luke?
What we have here is a failure to communicate.
I did this one of Representative Bernie Sanders, our socialist representative from the great state of Vermont, just to point to the fact that it seems like we've gone full circle on the McCarthy hearings, but with a twist. Now, I did this one to dishonor my most unfavorite president. And right here is the diagnosis of the imperious statism Lincoln advocated. This is what happens when dogs lie. You're probably going to have to stop this one to get it all. Speaking about lying dogs, here's one of my favorites. I think I titled this, "He Came to Me in a Dream." I did this one on the same theme. I think the message is pretty clear on this. I did it last July during the election campaign. The message is simple. The Democrats have had it in November, and if the elephants don't shape up, we're going to throw them out of office too. Now, this one is in dishonor of the Madam Speakerette and her fall from grace in November. Down with the bloody red queen that takes our freedom. Of course, after the election, all you could hear about from the Democrats was talking about bipartisanship and how we all need to be friends. I put this one up in honor of that, and I think maybe one following. That's based on basically the same theme. And here's another variation on Reid and McConnell. I think the message is pretty clear here. The Democrats are tyrants, and the Republicans are spineless idiots. And here is a moment that very, very many of us look so much forward to. And it's wonderful that it came to pass. Now, speaking of idiocy, now this one right here was done during the Lame Duck Congress. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. As is this one. Now here's a Thelma and Louise theme, except I used Nancy Pelosi and Maxine Waters. And it's heightening our financial mess and their contribution to it. This one also refers to the financial disaster that the idiots in Washington has gotten the whole nation in. And the next one that follows will also be about finances. Now this one right here is to remind us that Obama's spending freeze is in reference to a budget that is $1.5 trillion over budget. Isn't that special? And of course, no 2010 reminiscence would be complete without some reference to global warming, like the disaster in Cancun, where they held a global warming conference and had the coldest temperatures in the history of the place. Now, y'all gonna have to stop this one in order to read it all. But I'm reckoning that most of you don't have the patience to do that. And, you know, who can blame you, really? Americans just not known for patience. So I decided to make it all nice and concise and put it all in one big concept, and here it is. I sure appreciate y'all watching.